Nitrogen reduction strategies. We're talking about practices, products, and tips you can use to reduce nitrogen without sacrificing yield. Why? Because eventually you're going to have no choice but to reduce nitrogen.
Welcome to XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve podcast, where real farmers share real insights and real results to help you improve your farming operation. This episode of Cutting the Curve is brought to you by CLAAS, where machines aren't just made, they're made for more. With a wide range of tractors, combines, foragers, and hay tools, CLAAS is a family business just as driven, demanding, and dedicated as yours. Go to claas.com and start cutting your curve with their cutting-edge equipment. And now, here's your host, Damian Mason.
Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of Cutting the Curve. I've got Temple Rhodes coming at us remotely from his farm in Temple in Maryland. He's in his truck. He's running to the combines. He pulled over to talk to me and Ryan Harder. Ryan Harder is with SoundAg, and we're talking about nitrogen reduction. This is a bit more of a series, if you will. Yes, it's an informal series. We've talked about with Johnny Varell and the trials he's doing down in Tennessee at his field day, where he reduced nitrogen rates on corn to see what the results were. Of course, when he went down to zero nitrogen, the corn looked like a stunted, drowned sweet corn without ears. We went to Kelly Garrett's, who did various rates of reduction on corn. Here's the deal. We've covered it in different episodes and different methodologies and different fields to show you the results. Now we're talking about products, practices, and tips, why you can reduce nitrogen without sacrificing yield and why you're going to have to. In a nutshell, regulation is very likely coming. I am not cheering this on. In fact, here at XtremeAg, we deal with the cards we are dealt. Temple's our guy on this. You've heard countless times talking about the regulation that came to the Chesapeake Bay area long before it came to where you farm on reduction, particularly of phosphorus. Well, it's my view that nitrogen reduction regulation is coming. In fact, there's an article from 2011. That's how long this goes back, 13 years ago, where the United States Department of Agriculture was talking about reducing agriculture's nitrogen footprint. Our new policy approach is needed. It's been in the talks for a while. It's getting more heat. It's coming. Temple, give me the farmer's perspective. Then I want to talk to our agronomist from SoundAg.
Well, Damien, you hit on it a minute ago, from the area that we're in. Yes, it is a phosphorus reduction for us here, but it's not only a phosphorus reduction, it was a reduction for nitrogen as well. So what you're talking about coming, it's absolutely coming. And it's very scary. When we go places, Damien, you and I together, people always ask us, how do you deal with the regulation? How do you do? You really have to find a way to reinvent yourself. The good news is the technology's out there now where we have enough tools in our toolbox that we can actually do a really good job of reducing nitrogen, reducing phosphorus, and doing all the right things and balancing the plant where we can get to a point now we can actually grow better yields than what we grew before.
Ryan, Kelly Garrett, who's one of our XtremeAg founders, says the holy grail of American agriculture is corn production because, by God, we love to grow corn in America, and we grow lots of it, and we're good at it. And you want to grow more corn, you know what you got to do? You got to just pump the nitrogen to it. That has been the psyche. That has been the approach for at least since post-World War II. We're talking probably 70-plus years. That has been all we want to do. Grow more corn, throw more nitrogen at it. Only recently have some folks, Temple, Kelly, etc., said, you know what? We don't need 1.2, 1.5 units of nitrogen per bushel out here. And they're cutting back. They're discovering they can do it with half that. I think we're still not even close to discovering what we could be doing. Your thoughts as a young agronomist?
No, I think you're exactly right, Damien. And Temple alluded to it earlier, about just making sure that, hey, we're keeping everything in the right balance, right? And I think that what the hidden cost that a lot of people don't realize is that, yeah, when you put on extra nitrogen that you don't need, first of all, you're spending a few extra dollars, especially in the tight ag economy that we're in today. That's probably not the thing to be doing. And also, we can actually get things out of balance pretty quick if we have an excessive load of nitrogen. So when we have excessive nitrogen, we start to get our soils unbalanced. So we start to limit boron and potassium uptake into the plant. So it's similar to that whole interaction of like phosphorus, right? So if we have a high load phosphorus fertilizer, starter fertilizer, if you don't have zinc in there, then all of a sudden you've kind of shut the zinc off to your plant, right? Because we're unbalanced. Same thing goes with nitrogen. If we have too much nitrogen, we start to or unbalance things so that they don't start to get into the plant.
So the first thing is we think we're over applying, and a farmer, if I'm putting my farmer hat on, I'm going to say, yeah, but you know what? It's traditionally been pretty affordable. There's no regulation right now telling me how much I can use. What the hell? I'm going to keep putting it on there. Temple, respond from a farmer perspective.
As a farmer's perspective, we're so used to doing that traditional thing. You got to unlock your mind. And I think this year, with the price that it cost us for our inputs, it's changed so much that it is going to make us go out there and look for other things, a way to cut cost. And the only way to really cut costs, we can't cut out the fertilizer, the seed. We can't cut out the equipment because we need the equipment, but we can cut some fertility costs. And if we can get your head out of, whatever, what I want to say, I can't say, but if you can get your head in the right place, you can start to think about, hey, how can I actually save? And the only way that you can save, and we can save ourselves right into poverty if we're not careful, but if you can save yourself some money, you can save it on reallocating, and also going back and actually putting nitrogen on at the needs when it needs it. And these products that we have out there can use our efficiency. It can drive our efficiency rating way up. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do.
I want to talk about some of those products. Before I do that, I just want to ask, how much on a per bushel basis have you cut back? And you're making more. In other words, you're using less nitrogen per bushel produced. That whole thing about 1.4 pounds per unit and all that kind of stuff. Where are you now?
Okay, so you're a math guy. So remember you and I doing all these talks at our field day, and you and I doing talks about how I cut my fertilizer this year again. Well, I put on 120 units of N, and I've harvested that dry land corn now, and it has had all these different products on it now, and I cut a lot of money out of it, and I even cut out my dry fertility program. So I'm at 120 pounds of N, and the lowest field average that I had on, basically all the dry land that we really, kind of stomped the brakes on really hard, was 171. So you do the math.
All right. 120 divided by 171 puts you at 0.7 of a pound per bushel. Yes?
That's correct.
Yeah. And you used to think, and we used to think almost double that was necessary.
Well, and we've been in a nutrient management program around here for 20 couple odd years. Those first years we were used to 1.25. That's where we were. Yep. We were at 1.25. That was our goal. That's what we shot for. And it never really worked out. It was back like he was talking about a minute ago. It just never really worked out. We never got the maximum gain. Well, now when you started in our region, we're allowed 1 pound per bushel. Yep. That's what we're allowed. You can't be over that.
Yep.
So reducing it and driving more yield is like, what is going on here? But it's the tools in the toolbox that we have.
All right. Speaking of tools in the toolbox, going way back, Ryan, and I'm talking like 1970s, Inserve was the big product name. Temple's old enough to remember it. It was it prevented volatilization, I think. It was a stabilizer. They called it a nitrogen stabilizer. And that was even new on that. Was like, well, why do we need this? Well, because nitrogen's volatile, but because nitrogen leaches, whatever those things are. We've come a long way. So talk to me about what you think of. Your company does not make nitrogen stabilizers. Your company makes products that help me just reduce nitrogen, period. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so Inserve is actually a nitrification inhibitor. So a little bit different mode of action there on the nitrogen cycle to pick.
That was the very beginning. That was the beginning of this whole idea about how to use nitrogen better and use. It never said use less. It just said stabilize it.
Well, I think we still need to use products like that too to make sure that the nitrogen we're applying isn't going down the tile lines or isn't volatilizing up to the atmosphere through the nitrification process. And there's a few different ways to do that. And so our product being one, that source product that's helping mimic that strigolactone to get the microbes in the rhizosphere activated and basically make them work better. So that way we can tap into some of that nitrogen that we're kind of getting that we think we get from the soil. So really tapping into that organic matter mineralization and able to access the entire rhizosphere that way. And I think some other things to hit on, Temple's down to 120 total pounds of nitrogen, like he said, and I'm sure he's not doing it all in one shot, right? And so I think that as we think about this nitrogen reduction thing broadly and making it work, we can't just go out there in the fall and apply 120 pounds of anhydrous ammonia and say, yep, well, Temple applied 120 pounds, so I'm just going to apply 120 pounds. I'm going to do it this way, right? So I think that's
Don't
not
do that.
exactly. That's not the right way to do it, right? And so, split applications of nitrogen, I'm not talking 6, 7, 8. I know that some people believe in that, but I don't think that's necessary to get to the kind of, place we need to be in agriculture. But just broadly thinking, if we have two, hopefully at least three different applications of nitrogen, I think we're going down the right path. Especially, you think about using like a starter fertilizer, like a 2x2 or a 2x0, or, doing something in season. I think that if we can start to be a lot more efficient with our nitrogen applications, we can definitely reduce that number by a lot.
All right. So we talked about applications, and we're going to come back to products and some practices. Temple, how many times did you put nitrogen on this in that field you're talking about? Was it 3 applications? 2?
4.
4. Four
It
times
was
nitrogen
4.
went out. Nitrogen
Yeah,
was in
we
the
were
mix 4
we
times.
were in we were in a 2x2. We were in a strip till. We were in 2 shots of a Y drop. And it's very minute amounts. But if you go back to that chart, Damien, that you and I talked about at the field days, you go back to that chart of what that plant actually needs in that life cycle, and you look at it and you tweak your whole thing. Let's say that at between and V6, the plant needs 18% of its total nitrogen. Well, if your total nitrogen needs are 200 pounds is what you think, take 18% of it and put it up front there. And then in the middle there, if it's, 30%, then fulfill that need at 30%. And then the end, if it comes in the reproduction, before you get to reproduction, fill it in right there. That's how I've done this.
The chart's remarkable. It's from another company we work with, but it just talks about the lifespan of a corn plant, for instance, and when it needs nitrogen. And so these guys that think they're going to put their nitrogen all out at fall for the next spring, summer, you're talking about a plant that needs, to Simple's point, 18% between planting and V5 or something like this. Well, it needs a whole bunch more come like August. You think that stuff you went out and flinged out there in October is still around in August? Hint, it's not.
No.
All right. Talk to me real quickly, Ryan. The product you have, Source, how's it? How do I use it? How does Temple use it to help him reduce nitrogen without sacrificing yields?
Yep. So our source product is utilized in a post herbicide application. So it's a 1 ounce per acre use rate, targeting that V4 to V6 time frame on corn. And so basically what we're trying to do is we're really trying to activate that soil microbiome. So the source product is 100% chemistry. There's no live microbials in that. None of this proclaimed like bug in a jug type stuff. So it is hard chemistry with an active ingredient of monolactone. And basically what it's doing is making that plant send that natural strigolactone signal to get the rhizosphere activated and increase the population of nitrogen fixing bacteria in the root zone.
Okay. So you said a lot of stuff there. It's not a bacteria. It's not a biological. It's true chemistry. It goes in. When did we use it again? When did we apply it?
V4 to V6 on your corn, so your post herbicide timing.
All right. So your first herbicide pass, is that when you put it on, Temple?
Yeah, I actually put it on twice, and I put it on with fertility as a foliar. So I put it on at like V5, and then I go across it later on, and I put it on one more time. What we found is, all of these different products seem to work very well together. When you put a foliar in with source, they seem like they work off each other somewhat. And that's how we've really made out really, really well with it. So I'm actually putting it on twice. I'm not just putting it on once. I'm putting it on twice on high production acres. On my regular production acres, yes, one time at my herbicide pass, and that's it. But go back to the products, and let's go all the way back. And I want to say something about this so everybody understands. When you were talking about nitrogen stabilizers a minute ago, Damian, nitrogen stabilizers, most all of them are urease inhibitors. What that does is it goes in and it kills the biological activity in the soil with the nitrogen that you're putting on. And the reason that it stabilizes the nitrogen, and it does work, it's because when you put nitrogen in the soil, what happens is the biology goes to work, and it's transferring it over into the way that the plant needs it to take it up. Well, when it's transferring it over, that's when it's volatile. So that's the problem with a urease inhibitor with some of these stabilizers. When you throw a stabilizer in there, you're killing biology, and that's the worst thing that we can do. As much as we're saving the nitrogen, well, the problem is the plant's not taking it up either because it's locked down where it can't take it up. So that's where a lot of these other products work. When you put nitrogen on, we'll add like NutriCharge, for instance, we'll add a humic, we'll add a fulvic, and we add all these stuff we treat our fertility, but we're not killing biology. We're doing everything that we're doing. We're promoting biology. Source is doing the same thing. It is waking up that plant and making the roots do things that it never did before. So it is enhancing it. That's what I'm getting at. We have that synergetic effect where everything is working together.
Ryan, by the way, he just summed it up for you. I like it right there. He just did your job for you. But the point is, first off, we used to overuse nitrogen, still do. Then we thought, well, we're going to put some stability product in there so the nitrogen doesn't volatilize or leach. Okay, great. But you still have the net effect of you destroyed your soil biology, you over nitrogened, and now you destroyed your soil biology, which is a living, breathing organism, as we know more now about soil than we used to. So the new methodology is stuff like yours. Use less nitrogen, get more benefit of it by actually getting into the plant. And that's the practice that you would champion and say we should be doing more of.
Absolutely.
What about the idea that he just said he used it twice? He put your product in with two different treatments, on a foliar and also in, I think he said, in furrow or 2x2. So the point is your product works over the top or into the soil.
So it's foliar applied only is what we have labeled. Yep, we've done some trials where we do get some positive interactions from it applied, different timings and in furrow, things like that. But our labeled timing is foliar applied.
Okay. Do I need to know anything else about practices to make this product work?
No.
Okay. All right. So in the future, where are we going with this? Nitrogen reduction strategies. What do I need to do? Temple, what do I need to do? First off, you said you started changing up your fertility. You put nitrogen on 4 different times versus people trying to do it all at once. That's nitrogen reduction strategy number 1. Number 2, using a product like Source and a couple of other things that you did that create more, I'd say, uptake, soil. What are the other things you'd say they help with uptake?
Efficiency.
They help with
efficiency.
Uptake.
It's efficiency of the uptake of nutrients, yes.
Okay. What else do I need to know if I want to reduce nitrogen?
So when, first of all, the first thing you need to do, I know that we only talk about nitrogen here, but if you're going to reduce nitrogen, make sure that you have your soils balanced, because without your soils balanced, if you just cut nitrogen, you're creating a whole nother animal. So be careful of what you're doing. But can it be done? Absolutely, it can be done. The way that I use Source is again, at V5, what my herbicide application. And then again, later on, when I say later on, I mean in tassel, and it's over the top. And I'm putting fertility on, foliar nutrition on with it. And then in between those two times, what am I doing? I'm making 2 wide drop passes. So I am dropping enough nitrogen out of those wide drop passes, both of them, that covers the cost of that product. And that's how much I'm reducing it. So I'm getting the same bang, but in the end, I'm getting better yields.
Ryan, I'm sure you run into a lot of you're a younger guy, you're from Illinois, you run into skepticism on this topic about reduction of nitrogen all the time. Tell me about the reception. Tell me about maybe they're starting to realize there's legislation might be coming. What's your experience?
Definitely folks are becoming more open to the idea of reducing. And I think it all starts around this whole concept of, hey, just go try something, right? And so I don't think the thing to do is if you're applying 200 pounds of nitrogen today, I don't think you listen to this and go apply 120 pounds for next year, right? Like that's not the goal of this. The goal is to, hey, start seeing what you can actually reduce, because I'm sure that you can probably reduce more than what you're comfortable with, but just do something that you're comfortable with. There's a lot of nitrogen that we get from the soil that folks don't think about from organic matter mineralization. If you utilize products such as Source, we can tap into that even more and get even more from our soil. And so I think there's some different practices folks can do to really become comfortable reducing nitrogen. But I would say that for the most part, everybody's kind of hanging in there about that 1 pound of nitrogen per bushel. And I think that in a lot of the soils, especially in the Corn Belt, especially in Illinois, when we get 3-4% organic matter soils, I think we can drop that down to, 0.9 or 0.8 pretty easily and be really comfortable there, especially if we're doing a lot of the right things and not putting it all out there in the fall. We're doing a few different applications. I think there's a lot of room to really bring that down.
Which doesn't seem like a big deal, but Temple, if I go from 1 or 1.2 pounds like Grandpa did it down to 0.7 like you did, it's a 50% reduction. Help me out with some numbers here, but didn't I just save like $400 an acre?
I mean, you saved a pile. I mean, nitrogen cost, depending on what form you get it in, is anywhere between 53 and 60 cents per pound that you put out. So, I mean, you just need to do that math. So, I mean, if you're putting on 200 pounds of nitrogen and then you're going to, instead of putting on 200 pounds, you're going to put on 180 pounds, take 20 pounds, you're saving $10.
Okay.
Right there.
I thought I was trying to save more than that.
Just
trying to save more than that.
Well, you can, but it's a work in progress. You got to see where you're comfortable at. Every soil type is going to be very different. And let's just take high organic matter soil, like, Midwest soil. So Midwest soil, they hold on to a lot of nitrogen in organic matter. This product right there would work extremely well in that, because there's tied up nitrogen that's in that soil. My soil type is very, very different. Mm. My soil type doesn't hold on to nitrogen because our CECs are so ridiculously low.
Yeah.
It just volatilizes, it gets out of there. But the product works 2 different ways. It's going to help you untie or help you balance the plant better by getting some of that nitrogen out of that organic matter. And in my case, it makes my nitrogen efficient. It makes my root zone efficient. It makes me be able to pull up stuff immediately as soon as it gets into the soil profile. So it works 2 different ways. It works very, very well. I was extremely skeptical when they first brought it out for me to trial. And I'm thinking 1 ounce, like we're talking about a thimbleful, an acre, and this is going to work. Like, what kind of magical stuff is this? And I had a lot of choice things to say, and I didn't believe in it. But until I put it into trials, you don't know. That's why you have to try it on your farm and make different things like Johnny did. Go from 0. I mean, that's pretty dramatic. Johnny went to 0. But just saying, you have to make these trials on your farm to find out where you balance at and where you fall in at. And you might not fall in perfectly. I can tell you for my instance on my farm, we've got 3 years worth of trials on Source, and all 3 years say the same thing. When I put Source on alone, I get a bump. and it pays for the product, and it pays for what I'm doing. But it didn't save me a lot of money. It paid for the product. It made sense. It's good for the environment. It's really good for my soil to not put that much nitrogen down. It was great, but it didn't make me a lot of money. It made me a few dollars an acre, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Where we saw the big difference is we went back in and we reduced phosphorus and nitrogen, and that was a big savings. And then on top of that, we came back in and we added foliar nutrition. Like we use a bunch of nature's foliar nutrition, and we blended it with the source when we put it out. Huge returns.
Got it.
Now, I'm not saying that that's going to work everywhere, but what I'm saying is this is why we do trials on our own farm, because what works for me, Damien, is not going to work for you, and vice versa.
Ryan, is that okay? So the big takeaway there was you can't say I spent $14 an acre on this Ryan guy's product from SoundAg and it made me $1 million. But I can say I spent $14 and it allowed me to shave off $40 over here, $60 over here, $80 over here, and not sacrificing the yield. I'm guessing that's probably what you've heard before.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway. And like what Temple was talking about too, our source product is extremely synergistic with a lot of other things that folks are doing, whether that be with a planter box treatment, foliar fertilizers. Our product works very well with a lot of others and can enhance the response that you get from all those other products you're probably already using.
So the strategies are, first off, use it 2 different times with 4 different applications of fertility that included nitrogen. You cut back on phosphorus. I'm trying to think through the other practices. Temple put nitrogen out via twice over the top, once in furrow and once in 2x2. Is that right?
Strip till, 2x2, wide drop.
Got it. Sorry. And then used your product two different times, both of them on a herbicide pass?
On a herbicide pass with foliar nutrition. Correct.
Got it. And then any other strategies from the standpoint of the person listening to this says, okay, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to cut back my nitrogen by 20, 30 pounds. What else you got to tell them?
Keep in mind, Damien, when you talk about all these different nutrient management programs that are coming up, things that are coming out in the future, the regulation that we're going to have to deal with. When you put foliar nutrition on with a source product, all of these products are going to pay you back because, one, they don't count against your nutrient management plan. So it doesn't diminish what you're trying to do, and 2, it sets you up for what's coming in the future, whether it be carbon credit money, all of this, the things that we're doing in regenerative roots. All the things that we're talking about with the soil health initiative, this all plays into it. And eventually it's going to get to a point where we're going to get paid for some of these practices, hopefully.
Ryan, get me out of here. You pretty much agree with that, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And to Temple's point, my biggest takeaway always is that I want people to think of, if an apple a day keeps the doctor away, just because we 30 apples at the beginning of the month, that's going to make us sick, right? We can't eat multiple apples in one day. So the same thing's true of nitrogen, right? So if we go apply it all at once, we're actually probably doing more harm than we're good. And so we need to make sure that we're splitting that up and making sense of our nitrogen applications.
I agree with that. There's regulation coming to see. I'm over here in Indiana. We're not like Illinois, so regulation on this is going to come to Illinois before Indiana, probably.
Yeah, I know that regulation is definitely cracking down on fall applied anhydrous ammonia. That's kind of the biggest one right now. I know 2025, they're looking at different rules and regulations that could be imposed then, like Temple was talking about, it's all about getting paid, right? And so I'm sure if Kelly Garrett was on, he'd talk about CI score and how you can lower that. And, the source product is one way to help you get there. And so when we take biology plus chemistry, now we have agronomy. Now we're getting somewhere, and now we're able to really, dive into our soils and make the most out of those.
You referenced it just as we're getting ready to hang up here. You're just doing that to make Temple mad. Kelly was on here. He started talking about how his beef operation is better than Temple's beef operation. And Kelly going, and now you're going to get them two going. It's like going, you did. You just stirred them up in the back of the station wagon. I got to drive this home. Did you realize that, Ryan?
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. Thanks.
All right. His name's Ryan Harder. Temple Rhodes coming at you from the road. It's harvest time, so excuse him for having a touchy signal a couple of times. He's on the road to go to get some harvest brought in. It's harvest time. Ryan Harder's with SoundAg. If people want to learn more about this, nitrogen reduction strategies, and utilizing your product to do so, where do they go?
Sound.ag.
Sound.ag. That's it. By the way, Temple's so agitated now he's going to be shaking in the combine because you got his competitive juices. They compete.
Yeah.
They compete. It's like it's you wouldn't believe it. It's like it's just they're like siblings that have to always outdo each other. Ryan.
The problem is I can't outdo him, and that's what gets on my nerves the most. Like, I don't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a bet over. We'll bet on anything, but I've gotten to a point I won't even bet him because I think out of about 150 bets, I've won one, and he's won 149. Like, I'm done betting with him. I'm done.
All right, till next time, I'm going to have to call Kelly and get him going now. And see, this is how I keep their energy level up. All right, till next time, thanks for being here. I'm David Mason with XtremeAg Cutting the Curve. If you want to learn more, you know what? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of podcasts just like this at our website, XtremeAg.farm. Also, it's an entire library. It's all free there. Also, if you want to take your learning to the next level, you can become a member for just $750 a year. That's $750 a year. You can become a member of XtremeAg, and you'll have direct access to guys like Temple and Kelly. And you can agitate them just like I do. And then you also get data at the end of the year, and you get special offers from our business partners. For instance, you could go to Commodity Classic for free. So check it out, XtremeAg.farm. Till next time, thanks for being here.
That's a wrap for this episode of Cutting the Curve. Make sure to check out XtremeAg.farm for more great content to help you squeeze more profit out of your farming operation. Cutting the Curve is brought to you by CLAAS, where machines aren't just made, they're made for more. Visit CLAAS.com and start cutting your curve with cutting-edge equipment.